Live from the Average Joe Nation studios in St. Clair, Missouri. This is the Average Joe Podcast, a show that proves that in this crazy world, a combination of common sense and a C-plus average is actually a superpower. Sure, he's crazy, but what if he's right? Please welcome your host, Damon Gilbert.
All right. I don't know if you've ever had anybody who has been in a situation where they're in cancer treatment, chemotherapy, that kind of thing. But yesterday I didn't do a podcast because my father was actually going through. He's actually not going through chemotherapy. He's actually done that already. He's actually in what they call it's an infusion. It's a different type of treatment that's supposed to keep the cancer at bay, which is fine, and it becomes a real issue because my father can't drive on the highway. So anyway, long story short, he's in remission. He's doing fine. He's 86 years old. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make here is the cancer is obviously serious. There's no doubt about it. It was bladder cancer. And I'm not I'm not looking for sympathy or anything. I was just, the point I'm trying to get to is, when they talk about a cure for cancer and that kind of thing, we're looking for the cure. You'll see those ads. Excuse me, having a little trouble with my throat. You see those, the wearing the pink and all that, and it's, we need to find a cure for cancer. Well. And this is probably not news to a lot of you out there, but there is not going to be any cure for cancer. Believe me, this industry is just monumentally huge. There's no way they're going to just shut that whole industry down and just go along and act like it, and everybody's going to find new jobs. No, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. What they're going to do is, and they're going to continue to do this, and I firmly believe this, they're going to continue to find more treatments for cancer. That's what they're doing. Not a cure. A cure means that you end the business model, and they're not going to do that. There's not a chance they're going to do that. If you sit in a cancer institute, and I think this is the Pratt Institute in St. Louis that we attended, he's been down there several times. Now he's on Medicaid, or Medicare. So he only has to pay so much per year total, and then Medicare takes care of the rest of it, which is fine, and that works out great for him because he's not a wealthy man by any stretch of the imagination, so he can still get the treatment regardless of how much money he has. But here's the bottom line: he's still, and you are, and I am, a taxpayer, so that money goes to Medicare. And the Medicare's money is being siphoned off by these treatment centers, as far as I'm concerned. Because if you would look at the people that were there in the waiting room, and I mean there's hundreds of them, they're coming in. It's like an assembly line there. I was just blown away, and I've been doing this for over a year. I've been involved with this for over a year, but I never really sat down and really thought about it on a level like this, because this is, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars per minute coming through that door. And just the treatment center itself was so full. There was probably 40 chairs in there. Every one of them was full. And you're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars for treatment for each one of those people. So if you think that industry is just going to go away because we find a cure for cancer, you're dreaming. They're not going to do that. This is a moneymaker. As a matter of fact, and it's been developed over the last 30 years, I guess, maybe even longer, maybe since the 70s. But at the end of the day, this is an industry they found out that they can make money at. The medical industry said, "Hey, we see dollars here. We see dollars that we can get from the federal government." Is what this all boils down to. Now, there were some young people there, don't get me wrong, and that's a tragedy at any level. But my dad, he's 86, as he says. How long do you think I'm going to live? How long do you want to keep doing this? And we actually talked to the doctor about that. How long do we continue this treatment? I mean, he's healthy right now. Apparently the cancer's all gone. Well, the other doctor said, it's kind of like hiding in the weeds. We got to keep it at bay. And he said, well, we'll talk about it after a year. Okay, well, this is every 3 weeks. So my point being, and I don't want to dwell on my own situation, because a lot of people are dealing with this very same thing, but it just amazes me, and to people to believe, you make donations to the Cancer Society and maybe whatever. That money's not going for a cure. It's not. They have no intentions of doing this. And I hearken back to a friend of mine had his father was an MD, and I remember having this discussion one evening. It wasn't at his place of work. It wasn't at his practice. Nothing like that. We were sitting around, having a few drinks. I was probably 22 at the time, so it's been 40 years ago. And he said to me, Damon, he said, when I was a young man in college and doing my internship, he said, in order to see a child, to find a child that we could study, that we could go and see, who had cancer back in the 40s, he said, maybe it was the 50s, but he said it was almost impossible. He said you had to drive 300 or 400 miles. He said, and I did it. He said, I did it to go see a child who actually had cancer. He said, now, even today, and this was in the 70s, he said they're building entire wings of hospitals that are dedicated to children's cancer. And you've seen them. You've seen them. Driving on the highway, you could see, Cancer Institute, Children's Cancer. I mean, we were there yesterday, and the St. Louis Cardinals are sponsors of the child's cancer ward at this particular facility. Now, they had the baseball up and everything. It's sickening is what it is. And what's causing it? I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with what we eat and how we eat it, how we prepare it. I think it has to do with a lot with what's in the drinking water. A number of things. It could be the Wi-Fi. But see, we don't care about that. The medical industry and industry in general doesn't care about the cause. They want to know how to treat it. Okay, so because here, take this as an example. I've got an example for you. Let's say you're running an ER. You work in an ER. You're a nurse or whatever, and you constantly have people coming in with gunshot wounds, and most ERs are readily equipped to deal with gunshots. I mean, if the medical industry in the United States is good at one thing, they're really good at putting you back together. Okay, if they talk about Humpty Dumpty and all the King's Men and all couldn't put him back together again. The United States can do that. The United States medical industry is good at putting people back together. I will say that. But let's just say you're in this ER and these people keep coming in and they've been shot. They've been shot. You can treat them. Everything's wonderful. Wouldn't it be the way to go to find out why they're being shot and who's shooting them? The cause, not the cure, but the cause. Wouldn't you say, hey, maybe we need to find out how these people are getting shot? That would stop this flow of people into our emergency room. But see, that's not what the industry wants. That's not what they want to do. They want to have those customers, and that's basically what it is. Yeah, they're customers, and they're not doing this for free. They're making a profit on it. Absolutely, no doubt about it. There is a profit involved in this. That's not for the betterment of all mankind, because if that was the case, we would be looking for a cure. But we're not doing that. So that's enough about that one. One thing I did want to talk about, and I don't know if you saw this in the news, but I thought this was hilarious, because if this is not symbolic of what's going on in America today, I don't know what is, because America is spinning out of control. It really is. You look at any segment of our society, any segment of our manufacturing base, any segment of our educational system, any industry you can think of, any part of America right now is in a tailspin. It's unbelievable. You are literally seeing history being made today. Your grandkids will be talking about this dark time in America. But what was funny, yesterday, I believe Biden was in Iowa giving a speech about some nonsense. And I won't even go into what it was about because half the time you can't understand him and he makes no sense when he does speak. But, and I'm sure you probably saw this, but a bird actually pooped on Biden, which if there's not symbolic and symbolism there, I don't know what is. And what's funny is because the White House, they don't want to admit that Joe Biden was pooped on by a bird. They don't want to admit that. So they're saying what they said it was corn, I think, that blew up on his and landed on his lapel or something. But if you can see the video, I've been pooped on by a bird before, okay? That's exactly what it looks like. That's exactly what it looks like. And I couldn't be happier that happened to this man. And what's funny is the White House, instead of doing again, I go back to, I could run the White House better than these people. I really could. You have to own this. That would be the way to go about it. Own it. Fess up to it. Make a joke out of it. Say, oh yeah, Joe was out and the bird didn't like what he was saying, so and just you would disarm this thing immediately if you did that. But they can't do that. They're not capable of doing that. They have to fight it every step of the way. They want to prove, no, that wasn't what it was. You're seeing things. Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? Unbelievable. And I go back to, I could run a better White House than this. I could. Just a little common sense, a little humility, and a little humor. What's the big deal? People would like you better if you admitted to these things, because it's happened to everyone. Everyone in America has had something like this happen. It happened. You're human. You're trying to make me believe that Joe Biden is above being human. I don't buy that. And no one does. All it does is irritate you when they won't even admit it. Yeah. So anyway, that was just something else I had to talk about that happened, that's inexcusable behavior. It really is. But in the light of things here, I talking about things going out of control. Folks, I'm not kidding you. This supply chain issue is not put to bed yet. Have you heard anyone talking about it in the last, 3 or 4 months? Okay, so you're assuming that it's been solved. I mean, a lot of people would be that way. And maybe not the listeners that I talk to, but I mean, a lot of people out there, probably people are saying, well, they must have got that straightened out, because if you look it up online and you do any research at all, you will find out that the number of ships sitting off Long Beach shore has dropped. Well, that's true. But here's the issue that they're not mentioning. They've actually invoked a maritime rule, and the federal government did. I believe it was federal government. If not, it was California government did. I'm not really sure on that part. But somebody in government invoked a rule. It's a maritime rule that states that if you're waiting offshore, I think it's based on the time frame. If you're there new and you're waiting, you have to be 51 miles off the shore of Long Beach. Okay, 51 miles out to sea, even if you're waiting to get into Long Beach port. Okay, and that's the only ones they have to count, are the ones that were inside that 51 mile radius. That's the only ships they have to count. So naturally, if you can control the amount of ships that are within that 51 mile radius, then it does look like you've solved the problem. But if you look at the website that keeps track of that, there's actually a website you can go about container ships, and it's like keeping track of airplanes flying around the world. You've seen that website or app where you can actually type in a tail number of a plane and find out where it's at. Yeah, you've seen that. It's kind of like it's a GPS system, but they have the same thing for container ships. Well, guess where they're keeping all the container ships waiting in line? Down near Mexico. That's what they're doing. You can see it right on the app. There's hundreds of them. Hundreds and hundreds of ships waiting to unload at Long Beach port. But what they're telling you is, well, we've only got 50 waiting, and that's much better than it was, 3 months ago. Yeah, it's because you changed the rules. You literally changed the metrics on how you keep track of how many ships you say are waiting to unload. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So here's the deal. Here's the bottom line here, and I'm going to get to it right quick. I know I've gone off the rails here on 3 different subjects, but I had to talk about all this stuff. There are going to be shortages this summer. You can count on it. I mean, you talk to anybody. I've seen interviews with people that are in that work in Long Beach port. They're saying, believe me, get ready for shortages. We're going to have them. And what we're going to have is, and they're predicting it right now, they believe that there are going to be flash mobs that steal meat from the counters in grocery stores. There may even be rationing at some point, because Shanghai right now is completely shut down in China. And Shanghai and the port system are some of the biggest in the world. And they're not shipping out any containers because they've locked down the entire country and that entire city. So it's a domino effect, and it takes a while for it to get to you. But because the food you're eating right now was actually made last year. That's usually the way that works. So I'm just saying, you may want to be prepared for this, because I fully believe that we're going to see some shortages, and we're going to see shortages like we've never seen them before. I really believe that. So, if you can stockpile a little bit of food in the pantry, probably not a bad idea, and make it stuff that's storable. Your fresh fruits, that kind of thing. You may have to go without that for a while. I don't know. But I got a feeling this summer is going to be really bad, and it's probably going to go on for quite some time, because there are farmers out there that are actually not planting any crops because of the fertilizer issue being so expensive. Fertilizer's gone up almost 2,000% in the last 6 months. Now, you can, I guess, basically blame Russia for that, but I blame the United States for not making our own fertilizer. I blame the United States for not making everything, as far as I'm concerned. I can understand getting some portion of your industry from overseas, but we've gotten to the point where entire towns are folding up because there's no industry in them anymore. I see it all the time. Midwest is littered with buildings that people have just walked away from because we have no industry in the United States anymore. So I hold the United States responsible for this at the end of the day. I mean, say what you want about Russia invading Ukraine. That our livelihood and our well-being should not be based on whether the whims of a dictator. It shouldn't be. So anyway, that's all I got today. I hope that wasn't I went off in different directions, but that's just the way it is. It's my show. I'll do what I want, right? All right. Well, we'll talk to you here in a minute. We'll talk about the news.
This is the Average Joe Podcast. The Average Joe Podcast.
All right. One thing I did want to talk to you today, Abbott, I believe Scott Abbott from Texas, has said that he was going to start busing individuals, illegals, people that the Biden administration let come across the border. He was going to start busing them to D.C. and dropping them off. Well, apparently, now Psaki has said it was a publicity stunt, and even one of his, state representatives said it was a gimmick. But at the end of the day, he's actually doing it. They dropped the first bus load off in the Capitol, I think a couple of blocks from the Capitol last night. 40 individuals were dropped off. And so I think that's great. I think that's what every city in the United States should start doing. When they drop people off in your city, you bus them immediately to the United States Capitol. That's the way I think it should be done. Apparently, it's working, because they said that many of the communities that originally reached out for support, they're saying that the federal government stopped dropping immigrants off in their towns since Abbott announced this on April 6th. So that's pretty interesting stuff. I got to hand it to the guy. He's got guts. Let's see. Producer prices have risen 11.2% since last year. That's not good for us, folks. And I believe the inflation rate right now, they announced it the other day, was 8.5%. So things are not getting any better. And this Biden administration's predictions on, transitory inflation, that hasn't aged real well, because they told us that last, September, October, that it was going to be transitory. And I guarantee it's going to be around for a couple of years. It certainly looks like it, unless somebody makes some major decisions and some major changes, which I don't think they're going to do. I really don't. Let's see. What else? Oh yeah, the BLM co-founder. She's slamming the federal government and the media for claiming that she is a crook, and she's saying that the charities shouldn't have to be watched over. In other words, they should be just let to their own devices. That's what she's saying. This genius. What is her name? Patrice Cullors. Yeah, I guess that's who it is. She's speaking out. She's saying she doesn't even know what a 990 is. All right, that's something that charities have to fill out for the IRS. She's saying that's racist, right? Who would have thought that they'd go with the racist story, right? That never happens. Yeah. So she says that the 990 term is triggering her. She actually said this the other day. Yeah. Unbelievable. These people are grifters, and they know no bounds. They really don't. And they have the audacity to stand up on stage in front of a bunch of, you would think, intelligent people and tell a story like that. You don't even know how to run a charity, but you're in charge of one that's got $90 million in the bank. Unbelievable. If that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about that organization, I don't know what does. Now we're going to talk about the subway shooting in Brooklyn. Okay. Now, the mainstream media was doing their best to try and hide this guy's name, but apparently his name is Frank James, and he's 62 years old. He's a person of interest in this thing, and you've probably read about this, but did you know that the FBI's been watching this guy since 2019? He's a lunatic. He's a crazy man. His Facebook posts are unbelievable. I mean, he is off the plantation. He really is. Pardon the pun, because he's a black guy. Okay, and they don't like this because it doesn't fit the narrative at all. Okay, they wanted a white guy, a white supremacist, a Trump lover, that kind of thing. This guy is the exact opposite of that, and he shot up a bunch of people in a Brooklyn subway car, or I don't know if it was on the platform or what, but anyway, these are allegedly uploaded by the person of interest, and this is on YouTube. And mind you, YouTube, you can't talk about certain things. You know, the so-called election of a particular date, and the so-called sickness that was going on, and you can't say anything about that. But you can go on there and say 9/11. He called 9/11 the most beautiful day probably in the history of the effing world. He said that. Okay. Now, he also ranted that the vast majority of people, white mother effers, are racist. Okay. Now, this is a guy who was out walking around, and the FBI knew about him. So it's not fitting the narrative very well, and it's putting this Eric Adams in a pretty tough spot. He's going to be a one-termer as far as a New York mayor. This guy's not going to go anywhere. We were talking about defunding the police, a year ago? And now we're going to start putting more police officers on the subways. You can't make this stuff up. The left cannot figure out what they're talking about, ever. They just can't. They can't figure it out because they want a certain narrative pushed. And unfortunately, what will happen is you'll have something happen that actually brings out the narrative in opposition to what you were wanting to talk, what you're wanting to push. It's unbelievable. So we'll see how this goes. I'll bet it'll fall off the front page. What do you want to bet? Even if they catch this guy, I'll bet it'll do that. Governor DeSantis from Florida, he's got funds ready to start busting illegals out of the state as well. So I don't know. Washington, D.C. is going to end up with a lot of illegals in their area down there. I wonder if that'll make any difference in the long run. I tip my hat to Governor DeSantis. I do. I hope that all the red states start doing this. I really do. They need to start rounding these people up. They're illegal, and send them to Washington, D.C. or San Francisco, whichever. Drop them off near Nancy Pelosi's neighborhood. I think that'd be great. Here's another one that I thought was pretty funny. This has been up for a couple of days. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. But CNN Plus, I don't know if you remember that, but or heard about that, but that's where Chris Wallace went. He jumped from Fox News and went to CNN Plus, which is a pay-per-view. Well, it's a pay station. It's an offshoot of CNN, but it's you got to pay to watch it. And I said when this first happened, I said, what the hell is Chris thinking? He's going to a station, he's going to a media organization that's you have to pay to get, you have to pay to watch. And CNN can't get enough people to watch for free. So what do you think is going to happen? I don't think it's a stretch to say that it's going to be a disaster. Well, apparently it is, because CNN Plus fails to bring in 10,000 daily viewers. They're talking about big staffing cuts on the horizon. What an idiot. Why would you do that? He's not the sharpest pencil in the box. I don't know what he thought he was going to do. And I don't know what CNN was thinking at the end of the day. To go out and lure a guy away from Fox, who's making probably six figures at least, and you're going to put him on a pay station or a pay channel that no one's going to watch. You got 10,000. Okay, let's just say for the sake of argument, you got 10,000. They had to cut their price in half. They started out with $59.95, I think, a year, something like that. It was or maybe it was a little less than that. I think it was $5.99 a month. Okay, so that'd be about $60 or $72. So they had to cut that in half. So I think they cut it down to $26 a year in order to try to get people interested. And they can only have 10,000 viewers. So that's not a whole lot of money coming in. Not a whole lot of money at all. Next story I wanted to talk to you about was Twitter. Believe me, I'm no Elon Musk fan by any stretch, and we'll talk about that one of these days. But apparently, the employees say that at Twitter right now it is a shit show since Elon Musk refused to join the board. And I don't know if you're aware of this or not, and you probably are, but apparently the rule is that if you join the board of Twitter, you can only own up to 14% of the stock. So Elon Musk opted out of taking the board's spot. So the rumor now is that he's going to try and buy up a controlling share of Twitter and then turn it into what he thinks it should be. Whether or not that's true, I really don't know, and I really don't care. But at the end of the day, the fact that these people at Twitter, the employees who are all left-leaning lunatics, as far as I'm concerned, are having a bad day. And I mean, they are, some of the things I'm reading are, they say that Twitter employees are reportedly in a panic over the rumors of Elon Musk taking over the company. They said Bloomberg's reporting that the vibe at the corporate headquarters is super stressed. Oh my goodness, super stressed, folks. I bet you've never been super stressed before, right? Because these are weaklings. They really are. These people that work at Twitter. Have you ever seen some of the pictures of these people? They're pathetic. They're cream puffs. I mean, in a situation you certainly wouldn't want to have these people, watching your back in battle. That's for sure. They actually had to schedule, and I shit you not, they had to schedule a day of rest on Monday, a mental health break, to alleviate the panic felt by so many. Oh my gosh. The very fact, I gotta applaud Musk, and again, I'm no fan of his. Whether he did this on purpose or this was inadvertent, this is great. I'm loving this to death. These people at Twitter, this is the platform that will not allow a former president to be on their platform. They've banned him. That's unprecedented in American history, that a president is not allowed to do basically whatever he wants to. Twitter thought they knew better. So I don't feel sorry for these people at any level. And I hope, and I really do, I hope Elon Musk takes this on as a major, if nothing else, hobby. I want him to take down Twitter. I want all these people quitting. I want them to go away. Twitter is I don't know if you've ever been on there, if you've been on there lately. It's a hellhole. It really is. It's left-leaning lunatics. They just run rampant on there. And I take a lot of satisfaction in the fact that the people I cannot stand are up in arms over this. So that's a shame. I really hate that. Oh yeah, and here's another one. And this is not Babylon Bee. This is not The Onion. This is actually a true story. You know that the world has gone off the rails when you hear stories like this. And this is not just a single story, but apparently a Swedish folk band was canceled because they play a Russian musical instrument. Yeah, this band was doing a benefit concert to support Ukrainians, and because they play a Russian musical instrument, it outraged the critics so bad they compared it to displaying a Nazi swastika. I swear, you can't make this stuff up. If they had any idea, the people that are in charge of this had any idea, the left, these crazy people, I mean, you know as well as I do, how do you say stuff like this and do stuff like this and not just be so embarrassed? I don't understand what kind of logic goes through people's mind, what kind of logic they're using. This sounds like something that was made up, but it's not. It's not. I've got all the information right here. I'm not going to go into it, but I mean, this is not something that's made up. They really did do this. They they thought because you play an instrument that it's a bad thing. Well, I've never heard of anything quite so silly in my life, but that's just me. Let's see what else we got. 68% of American voters less likely to do business with Disney after company's sexual politics revealed. 68%, folks. 68%. You know the old saying, get woke, go broke. I'm telling you, this is going to hurt them, and it's going to hurt them big time. And Disney deserves every bit that they get. And I'm telling you, it's not just Disney. You're talking about ESPN, ABC. There's a whole laundry list of stuff Disney owns. Be careful when you listen to these people, okay? Be careful when you listen to anything in entertainment right now. If you want to try and stay away from Disney, now I'm not talking about the old stuff. I'm talking about the new stuff. I had a friend of mine say something the other day that someone he knew was throwing away all their Disney stuff, old, Cinderella and Goofy and all that. I mean, old VHS tapes and DVDs. They're throwing it all away. They're going to be anti-Disney. Well, that's just kind of stupid. That's kind of like pouring out vodka because Russia invaded Ukraine, and you're a liquor store and you've got all this vodka and you pour it out on the street. You already paid for it, you morons. What's the deal? That makes no sense. I can understand you not buying any more from them, and that's the way I feel about Disney. The old stuff, the Mickey Mouse and the Daffy Duck or Donald Duck and all that, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And even the stuff up to the last 10 years or whatever. I mean, little girls love that stuff. Cinderella, nothing wrong with that at all. Don't go crazy, okay? Don't go crazy, folks. You can not go to Disney World. That's fine. I will not set foot in that place. And I will not watch ESPN. There's a lot of stuff I don't do, but that's easy for me because I don't do that anyway. But I'm not going to go digging through my grandkids' DVDs and find a Disney DVD and burn it like we're burning books in Nazi Germany. I'm not going to do that. That's just stupid. But at the end of the day, 68, that's almost 7 out of 10 Americans less likely to do business with Disney. Tell me that's not going to hurt your business. Of course it is. Ask CNN. They'll tell you all about it. So anyway, let's see if that's all I got today. I believe it is. Oh, one thing I did want to mention, the Russian ruble has recovered. It's come back completely from where it was originally right after Russia invaded Ukraine. I just say, and another thing. If you think we're not involved in the Ukrainian war or whatever you want to call it, think again, because I'm going to do a story tomorrow. I've been reading it. I've been doing a little research on it. The United States is already there. Okay? They're not announcing it, but there was a French news guy that was over there who came back and said that he had to go through American checkpoints and speak English to American soldiers that were there. They were basically in charge. So we're there. End of discussion. Don't let him kid you. I think that's why that bird pooped on Biden. That's my guess, because he was lying. Anyway, That's all I got today, folks. And we will talk again tomorrow. Remember, it's April 13th, and Joe Biden is the worst president in American history. So let's go, Brandon.